All right, everyone. Good Monday morning. Hopefully, there's something good about it for you in some facet of your life. Something pretty interesting happened right after the game yesterday, and being that I get my post-game video up right after the game ends, I didn't get a chance to see it. And sometimes that's an issue with you trying to get a post-game video up literally. Well, in this case, I started recording it before the game actually ended, but regardless, I actually missed something that was kind of interesting and compelling just a few minutes after the game ended. And it was Pete Carroll's press conference. So we're going to take some time this morning to talk about this because this was pretty interesting. I found it to be pretty compelling, and it definitely makes this incoming off season, which is currently what should be on our minds right now because this season is over and the Seahawks have nothing left to do but play out the string because you can't forfeit. So let's take a look at some comments from Pete Carroll in his presser, and then let's talk about what he did, because it was not a typical Pete Carroll press conference in the things that he said and the way he said them, and also what he did. And I want to talk about this because it feels like this might matter. It feels like this might be a prelude to something that, quite frankly, needs to happen. But we'll get there in a second. I'm going to try to go chronologically here, more or less. There were a handful of moments from this presser. I'm sure you can find it on the Seahawks YouTube channel if you look it up. I'd recommend going to find it if you can, or finding the clips on Twitter or whatever. Carroll certainly carries himself and speaks in a way that is not typical of Pete Carroll. And watching it and listening to it, you can definitely see where things might officially be becoming undone. So we're going to go through part by part here, and I'm going to offer my take on it, I guess. So Bob Condotta has this tweet. This was from the first part of the press conference. Carroll says coaches have to do a better job helping the offense. Says he doesn't know why it's suddenly become a mystery for the offense to score points. Okay, so that's not a very good sign now, is it, for your head coach to get up in front of the media and say he doesn't know why something is happening with his team? Because this has been happening for a while. This offense has not been very good this year in general. They had a couple decent games, but for the most part, it's been bad. So right off the bat here, he makes himself sound like an idiot. He doesn't know why it's suddenly become a mystery, as if he has nothing to do with it, as if he's a fan like me, and he's just watching it. It's a mystery for me, maybe, why this offense doesn't score points. I don't know why this offense can't score points, but I'm just a fan. I mean, yeah, I can watch the game and I can tell you, oh, the Wilson's not taking his checkdowns, the offensive line is not blocking, the running backs are doing this or that. I can do all that stuff as a fan just by watching the games. But I don't know the underlying reasons. I don't know what they did or did not do in training camp. I don't know what they did or did not do in OTAs. I don't know what they're doing or not doing in practice every week that makes this so bad. So I don't know what's going on. But for Pete Carroll to come out and say he doesn't know why it's suddenly become a mystery for the offense to score points, that's bad. And I hope you guys all realize how bad it is for Carroll to go out there and say something like that as if he has nothing to do with this team. I hope I don't have to explain that any more than I already have. Okay, so Pete answered questions and talked to the media for about 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes. And then we saw something that several people who follow the Seahawks say they have never seen before. And this is the main reason why I'm making this video, because this was so interesting. Pete Carroll, after about 7 minutes, excuse me, I said 8 minutes, looks like Michael Sean Dugar says 7, just said, I'm done, stopped fielding questions, and walked off the podium. Field Goals believes that this is a prelude to him getting fired or retiring or stepping down or whatever. But the full quote from Carroll, as I understand it from other people on Twitter, was basically like, I'm really done, I'm done. So Carroll answers questions with the media for 7 minutes, which is much shorter than he usually does after games. And then he says, I'm really done, I'm done, and then walks off the podium. So, as someone who has been somewhat skeptical that the Seahawks have the ability to move on from Carroll after this season, things like this make you wonder. Pete Carroll does not sound like a very happy person right now, does he? This does not make Pete Carroll sound like he's having fun right now. There is nothing fun. And look, losing's not fun. I understand. Losing games is not fun. But it's also really not fun to not even be competitive in a game with your season on the line. I want to reiterate that. Yesterday's game, everything was on the line. And you had that effort and that performance. It's not fun to have a season where you try to go all in, where you use void years on contracts to try to save cap space, where you try to load up for that Super Bowl run, and then you start the season 3-7. So, to those of you out there who are skeptical that Carroll might actually go somewhere else after this season, this to me, I don't know how things like this happen with a coach and then that coach comes back the next year, barring an honest-to-God playoff run this year, which, again, we should not even be talking about. I don't know how things can deteriorate to this point and then just have Carroll come back next year like everything's okay. Curtis Crabtree also had a tweet right before Carroll walked off. He had a quote that said, it's the same thing. They need to play and coach better. It's the same issues they've had, and they need to get it fixed. So this was one of the last things Pete said before he walked off. Stormed off, I guess you would say, is more accurately. So they need to play and coach better. It's the same issues they've had, and they need to get it fixed. So we're 2.5 months into this season. We are 3.5 months since the start of preseason, basically. We have been gathered together as a team for months and months. OTAs, training camp, rookie mini camps, all these things. The team has been together for quite some time. And according to Carroll, it's the same issues that they've had since the beginning. So if the issues are not getting fixed, and if the issues are still causing them to lose games, then I wonder what Pete Carroll would say that says about his ability to coach. What does that say about his ability to lead a football team if they're still making the same mistakes? I can only say nothing good and nothing positive, and it's a pretty strong indicator that it's time for this marriage to end. Continuing on, because the drama did not stop there, Bob Condotta reported that Pete Carroll returned after the after initially walking out to take more questions. Says, I'm not any good at this, meaning losing, and we'll get more into that in a second. Carroll says he felt badly walking out, says he respects the media and wanted to make sure we all got questions answered by returning. So, I can't feel bad right now for Carroll having to take this from the media. I know it sucks to go out there and sit in front of a bunch of media guys and have to answer questions about why the team is so bad right now. Why this team that you went all in to win a Super Bowl for is not producing good results. Why this team that just got their franchise quarterback back can't score points. Why this defense that gets to play a team with a backup quarterback can't get stops early in the game. I know that sucks, but I want to be clear about something. I don't feel bad for him. He's a millionaire. This is on him. He's the reason why this is happening. This all comes back to him. Carroll even said in this press conference, there's a quote, "It all comes back to me." And he's right. And I've said that many times in my videos, and some people tried to blow me off. Some people tried to say, no, it can't be all on him. No, this is on this, that, the other thing. This is on this guy or that guy. At the end of the day, Pete's the head coach. At the end of the day, everything this team does or doesn't do comes back to him. And now he's finally starting to get irritated by the media. Usually Pete and the media have a very good relationship. Pete has always been courteous to them. He's always answered their questions, and the media has always given him softballs. The media's always made it easy on him. They don't challenge him on these things. They don't challenge him on things like keeping Ken Norton Jr. years after it was clear that he wasn't that good. They don't challenge him on things like trading all these draft picks for Jamal Adams and then not having a good plan on how to use him. They don't do that. Now, I want to get into the full quote that Carroll had after he stormed off and then came back, because he wanted to explain why he stormed off, and his explanation is pretty, I don't know what the word is. Let's just call it interesting. "I'm just not any good at this. I'm just not prepared for this. I'm struggling to do a good job of coaching when you get your butt kicked week in and week out. It's new territory, and I'm competing in every way I can think of, but it's just unfamiliar." That's quite an interesting quote. That's not something that you see from most head coaches, even ones that lose a lot, even good coaches that have bad seasons. You don't see things like this. So, really take a moment to digest this quote and try to see in your mind's eye how a coach can have a quote like this during a season like this and then just come back, because I don't see it. "I'm just not any good at this," referring to losing. "I'm just not prepared for this," losing. "I'm struggling to do a good job of coaching when you get your butt kicked week in and week out. It's new territory, and I'm competing in every way I can think of, but it's just unfamiliar." Now, when you read a quote like this, you want to commend Carroll for being honest. You usually don't see coaches express themselves like this. And maybe there's even a part of you that wants to feel bad for Pete Carroll, because he is a man. He is a human being. Sorry about that. But yeah, he is a human being. He is a man. He has a family. He has his pride. He has his ego. And you want to feel bad for him when you read a quote like this. But at the end of the day, you're the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm just not going to feel bad for him. Everything that this team is right now is because he willed it to be that way. He's in control of most of the front office decisions. At the very least, every front office decision runs through him, and at most, he has full control of everything in that front office. Every head coaching decision falls on him. We know that he heavily influences the way the defense is called and the offense is called, no matter how much that seems to be a bad idea. We know for a fact that he has a lot of pull in how that offense is, on how the play calling is handled and how the team is run schematically. So there's no way I'm going to feel bad for him, but you read a quote like this, and it does make you kind of stop and remember that, hey, he is a human being, he is a person, and this isn't easy for him, and he didn't want this. He took many stupid decisions that resulted in this, but he's not happy about it either. He's no happier about it than we are as fans. But really, I want you to take a look at this sequence of events. Carroll saying, "I don't know what's wrong with the offense. I don't understand it." And then he storms out because he's mad, because he's not handling losing well. And then he says, the things we're doing wrong are the same things that we've been doing wrong all season, as if he's incapable of fixing it because it's been several months. And then he comes out and makes this emotional show. Does this sound like a guy who is going to be able to come back next year? Does this sound like a guy who's having fun? Does this sound like a guy who at 70 plus years old might not just go, you know what, things aren't going well, I'm miserable, I hate everything about this, I just want to get out of here. Either put me out of my misery or fire me so I can get some money out of it, whatever. Does this sound like a guy who might come back? Doesn't sound like it to me. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The longer Pete Carroll hangs around without any good results to show for it, and I mean really good results, I'm not talking about 10 wins or a playoff appearance for some of you people out there who think that's good enough. It's not. But I'm talking about a deep playoff run where you belong at the big boy table with the best, most elite teams in the league. The longer Pete hangs around without producing a season like that, the less people are going to be able to remember the years when he did produce something like that. And if he hangs around for years post Wilson, trying and failing to rebuild, trying and failing to get his cover three scheme to work against a league that has figured it out, trying and failing to implement his offensive ideology in a league that has figured that out, we are going to resent him and we are going to forget about the good things that he did. Sports fans are fickle. You saw that yesterday when you saw how badly the team was getting booed. And those are, look, Seahawks fans, if you want to call them a little, they can be a little wishy-washy, I think. You could reasonably say they can be a little bit fair weather from time to time. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Some of them can be like that. But they really know how to get up for a team that is at least putting a respectable product out there on the field. So if you hang around for a few years here, Pete, if you hang around here for the last few years of your career and you decide to try to make this work without Russell, you bring in a Teddy Bridgewater, you bring in a Daniel Jones, you bring in a Jalen Hurts, and you try to do all this stuff that hasn't worked for years now, and you can't get this team back to the top, and then you have to leave, then not only is this fan base, are we going to start to lose this fan base that is ready for a winner, that is ready to go for the gusto as soon as this team actually is competing at the highest level and sell out every game and get louder than any stadium in the NFL, one of the loudest stadiums in the sporting world, then people are going to start to forget about the good times. Don't let that happen. What do you guys think? I went a little longer than I wanted to on this, but this was so telling to me. And much like his press conference a few weeks ago after the Saints game, I look at this stuff and I go, this guy really might be gone. This guy really might be gone. And honestly, after seeing things like this, if he does stay past this season, then the only reason I can think of why he would do that would be for the money. Please don't let your final legacy in Seattle be that, Pete Carroll. See y'all later.